What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is Dog Talk with your host, Holden. Glad to have you guys here as we get ready for another episode. Not necessarily the most exciting game this weekend because it is Vandy, and I don't mean to try to diminish Vandy in talking about this, but I think we can all say pretty much the same thing year in and year out, that this is a game that when you get into, it's just kind of one of those lackluster games. I know a lot of people actually look at this and they say, well, this is just kind of a definitive secondary bye game. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have a bye. You cannot sleep on this game, but at the same time, Vandy should not bring any kind of a competition against you in this game. Now, 2016, that was different. These two teams were in much, much different places, and we're not going to go back there. Again, these teams are just in different places, and Georgia is an elite football program. And coming into this game, there should be absolutely no reason for worry in it. The only worry that you could possibly have is sleepwalking into it, and the fact that the weather is going to be absolutely awful between rain and rainy and coldness. Okay, whatever. You guys know what I'm saying. Between that's about the worst of it, and obviously I'm fairly certain they're going to have a really fun time in their field house, which is going to be, I think, just a tent beside the stadium because they're doing construction to it. So there are some factors that could come in to make it where this Georgia program or this Georgia team doesn't do what they should in this game, but I don't foresee there being any reason that Georgia can't come in here and do exactly what it is that they want to do in this football game, and we kind of look forward to seeing that happen. Don't have a lot as far as the injury front goes. Most of the guys who have been out are out. I was incorrect last week when I was saying it was Xavier Truss that went down. It wasn't. It was Cedric Von Pron. He did come back in that game. And I, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if there's anything more on it. I don't know if he'll continue to be subbed out. I don't know if he'll be ready Saturday. I would imagine so, just considering he came back in the game. But just something to kind of keep an eye on there. Marvin Jones Jr., I think he's still out in this game. Was nice to see Kendall back last week, and I think we'll get to see some more of him this week as they continue to get to that 100% mark. I think he's pretty close because he looked really good last week. And like I said last week, and I'll probably say this every week, getting healthy at a good time. Late in the season is when you want to be healthy, and we're getting later. We're at the halfway point. I know some people look at the actual weeks and they're like, yeah, but we've played 6 games. That's half the season. And after Saturday, we'll be over that halfway point. So it's kind of crazy. It's just so fast. Every season, it just feels like it goes faster and faster. And you just wanted to slow it down a little bit. And we'll play Vandy this week. And after we play Vandy, we'll take a week off, and then we'll get ready for Florida, which will be fun for the world's largest outdoor cocktail party down there in Jacksonville. But if you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. Obviously, you don't see my fantastic face on the screen today, but that's okay. Just hit that like button anyway, and subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already. Over on Twitter and Instagram at DogTalk20, if you guys want to follow us there, I'd greatly appreciate it. So let's kind of go ahead and jump right into the game here. Pretty good matchup this weekend. I say that kind of in I'm not going to say it's a joking manner, but Georgia, again, should take care of business. Georgia, quick start last week, which was big, in that 51-13 win over Kentucky. Georgia had 608 yards in that game. 435 yards of those came through the air. 173 yards of that came on the ground. We had 5 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. Kind of the comparisons in this game. Georgia right now is sitting 10th both offensively and defensively at points per game. We're 40.7 points per game offensively, and defensively we're 13 points per game, allowing the offense there to have 13 points a game. So that's a pretty good spot to be for Georgia. I think coming into this game, we want to have that similar effect, get on top of them early, jump out to a good lead. I know I've seen a ton of people on social media saying, let's just get out of here healthy. And I think that's most definitely a big point and part of this game is to get in here and get out of here healthy, for sure. But, at the end of the day, you have to play a football game, and guys are going to get hurt, unfortunately. We hope that doesn't happen. My hope is that Georgia can have a quick start and we can get these main starting guys, just let them rest. The tough part about that is that I look at is next week is a bye as well. Now, obviously, these guys aren't just going home on a bye week and doing nothing. You're still preparing for the opponent that's coming the following week. But I know it's a little bit more lax week. One thing I do somewhat fear is that these guys come into this game and they get to rest for the whole second half and then a whole nother week, and they come into that Florida game real just quiet. I don't anticipate that happening, but that's still just a thought that I have. But regardless, it is. Let's get up to Nashville. Let's get healthy, back home healthy, anyways, and let's keep this season going because everything's going really well right now. We want to kind of continue that same trend as we continue to move forward through the game. Here's the comparisons that we've got right now. Vandy right now is 2-5 on the season. They're averaging 28.9 points per game. That's 74th in the country, and they're allowing 34 points per game to their opponents. That's 121st. So defensively, offensively, they're not great. They're not world beaters, but they'll at least put some points up, sitting almost that halfway point at kind of the middle of the pack there. But defensively, they're giving up a ton. And that's the reason Vandy has not found the success that you want to find in a program. If you have the offensive power, that's great, but you have to be able to stop teams. And right now they're not doing that. Offensively, they are getting 367.5 yards a game, but they're giving up almost 425. Yeah, 421.1 is what I see on here. So let's see kind of how they get that way, at least offensively, those 365.5 yards per game. The way that they do that, through the air, they're averaging about 275 yards passing, and on the ground about 92.6 yards rushing. So that's kind of how they end up with their yardage throughout a season. Again, I hate to say it. I don't hate to say it. I'm a Georgia fan. I think everybody's kind of the same way. But we don't watch much of what Vandy's doing, generally for this reason. It's a team that is, I hate to say, a glorified cupcake game. And they're in the SEC. That's the problem. They're in the SEC, and they're in your division, which will change next year. I don't even think we play Vandy next year. But it just, I don't know. This is always one of those games every year that you just kind of grease over, almost like playing a UAB, almost like playing a Ball State, and almost like playing a UT Martin. And I hate to say that for them because they're in the SEC. And this is the only disagreement I'll have with Kirby Smart when he said, I think every SEC team should be ranked. This is one I don't, because Vanderbilt, to me, just is not a team that should be ranked. It's not hard to play at Vanderbilt, which we're going to. The only reason it's going to be hard to play at Vanderbilt this week is because of the weather. It's not going to be because of the fan base, because last time we went to Vanderbilt, I'm fairly certain we had more fans in the stands than they did. And I don't anticipate that being any differently this year, especially with them starting as a 2-5 season, and also especially with them not really having their stadium the way they want it, and then the weather the way it is. Why in the world would you come to the game if the weather's like this for a team that, you're not necessarily all that excited about anyways, because they're 2-5? Why else would you come? Anyways, let me get my other point pulled up here on the screen for us. But then let's look at Carson Beck. I almost said Brock Vandegrift. Looking at Carson Beck here. On the season, we talked about this last week. He's now like the fourth leading quarterback in those passing percentages here. 144 from 196. That's almost 74% at 73.5. Almost 2,000 yards already in the season, 1,886. He's got 11 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the season. Georgia right now, we're averaging 349.7 yards per game, and that's passing yards per game, and also 2.2 touchdowns a game. That's how we get our yardage through the air. And then on the ground, we're 152.7 in the game as well. So Georgia, in all aspects of this game, for lack of a better term, should absolutely dominate all facets of this football game. All facets. So let's look at the keys to the game that we've got on the week. Offensively, protecting the ball. That's the first and foremost part, because I do think that's the only other way, in my opinion, that you can lose this game, is if you come into it and you just sleepwalk. If you're sleepwalking through this game and you're just giving the ball up left and right, you can get beat by a Vandy team. If you sleepwalk and you just throw interceptions left and right and you drop the ball on the ground, which I expect this to be a very, very big running game. I know in my second key right there, I've got let it rip, let us throw it. But if it's going to be rainy and cold out there, it's not going to be as easy catching that ball. So that's why my third points come down to run blocking. And I think that's because, again, we're probably going to end up running the ball much, much heavier in this game. And again, they're giving up a lot of yardage. Vandy is in this season so far. So I expect Georgia to be able to get whatever they want offensively. But main thing, protect the football. protect the football. Let's not have turnovers in this one. And then defensively, having pocket havoc, so getting around the quarterback, affecting the quarterback in any way. I'm assuming it's Ken Seals. I know I've seen their other quarterback too, A.J. Swan, I think. I don't really know why he's on the – I've only seen Seals. But, again, I'm not paying that much attention to Vandy. I haven't watched a lot of them. I haven't watched any film on them. So, but I do think if we create havoc in the pocket and not allow them to run the ball, but also stopping them from being able to throw, again, you just lock a team down completely, and I expect Georgia's defense to do that in this game. Getting turnovers is the next one on this one. You know, defensively, I think we started the season okay, but I'd like to see that kind of ramp up, whether it's interceptions, fumbles. You know, I know we're working on that. We're trying to get better at it, but we're just not getting home as far as that goes on turnovers. So I'd like to see that more in this game. And then open tackles. When you do have a guy who gets around the edge in that open field, you know, is making the tackle. Making the tackle, not allowing the guys to shed off of tackles and get extra yards because of that after contact. So that's going to be our keys to the game in this one. I was trying to see what my other thing was here. That may have been it. Score prediction on it for this season. Georgia over Vandy 48-3 is what I've got. Don't know if you guys will agree with it, but that's what I've got on the old score prediction there for this game. 48-3. I think Georgia's going to take care of business. I think it's either been 5 years or 5 seasons, and the reason I say it that way is because we didn't play each other in 2020. And I can't remember if this was back then or if this is now. But Vanderbilt has not scored a touchdown on Georgia in that long, whether it's 5 seasons or 5 years. Has not scored a touchdown. Now, they've kicked field goals, but have not scored a touchdown in this game. And I think it's been 3 years straight that Georgia has shut Vandy out. I think it's been 3 years straight that Georgia's been able to shut Vandy out. But, you know, I kind of feel like at some point, you know, something might go a little off defensively, mainly just because of the weather. I think the weather is going to play the biggest part in this game. It may be tough for Georgia to get to that 48 points, but I really do think that if Georgia starts running the ball like they have in years past, I think that's an opportunity for Georgia to really take off in this football game. I expect it to be more run-heavy than it is, you know, pass-heavy in this game. Would still love to see the rock flying through the air, but again, rainy days, it's hard to throw and catch easily. So I know they're preparing for that, and we should still be able to do that and not be turned one-dimensional because of it. But I expect Georgia to run the ball pretty heavily in this football game, and we'll see how that kind of turns out for it. But Dawgs on top, 48-3 is what I've got it for this game. So we've got some other big matchups that are happening around the country as well. You can see them scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, some of the bigger games that are going on around the country. So let's kind of take a look at a few of these here. I do have my weekly picks this year, or for this episode. And last week, you know, wasn't a good week. I said last week that I'm going to go really easy, and I'm going to pick like these Georgia Vandy games and some of these games that should really be taken care of. And then I kind of went against that. I decided to go with some games that are probably going to be a little bit closer. And I went full-fledged with it again with picks. I've got 8 total this week, which we'll get to in a minute. But some of the other big games that are going on around the country, I don't think Indiana-Michigan's going to be one. It's at Michigan. I just don't think Indiana's that good of a team. I know in years past, you know, they may keep things close, but I don't think that's going to happen in this one. Ohio State at Purdue, that one I don't think is a game that Ohio State's going to have to worry about either. Purdue's not that good of a team. Syracuse at Florida State, that's the big one for Florida State because they're coming to them. And if Florida State is the team that we think they are, let's see how close they can match that game to being what North Carolina did to Syracuse last week. Granted, it's at Florida State. It's going to be at lunchtime. It's probably going to be a cold and kind of a rainy game there too. Actually, the rain may be moving out of Tallahassee. But anyways, that's something to maybe keep an eye on. Let's see, does Syracuse have any life in them left after the past 2 losses that they've had? Then you got Arkansas traveling to Alabama. This is always one of those games that for whatever reason, even when Arkansas is in a lull, and they are right now, I think they've lost 4 straight, somehow they can – it's almost like the Iron Bowl. They can somehow make some magic occasionally and make this a tougher game. Not sure that's going to happen this year. You got Cal traveling to number 16, Utah. Big matchup of the weekend is number 8, Oregon, and number 7, Washington. I think this game is in Washington, yeah. So that's probably going to be one to watch. Washington is a favorite in this one. It's 2 undefeated teams. It's 2 teams in the Pac-12 who are fighting for rights to be the leaders in the Pac-12. right there alongside USC as well. So you got a lot of undefeateds in the Pac-12, which is kind of nuts because this is the last season you'll have the Pac-12, and all of a sudden they're good at the end of it. Texas A&M at number 19, Tennessee. I think this one's a big game. Tennessee is a favorite. I think that's because they're at home. You know, you generally get that field goal favorite, and that's what they are at the house. Otherwise, neutral site, this is a pick 'em game. Might be really good. You know, Texas A&M, that's kind of the same thing to me. Do they have any fight in them now that they've got 2 losses? Because when you reach that 2-loss point this season, you know, I think a lot of kids start to shut down and they go, well, you know, we got 2 losses. What are we playing for? It's not like we're about to play for a national championship. We're not getting in the playoffs with 2 losses. Even if we win the West, and somehow win the SEC, I don't know that you can get in with 2 losses. Could be wrong about that. They could win out and prove me wrong in that, but I don't foresee that happening as far as getting in the playoffs with 2 losses. But do they have any fight left in them? You know, can they go up to Knoxville? That's a 3:30 kick. It's not a night game. But rainy, cold weather up there as well. Can they have any fight in them and try to knock off the Vols? I don't know. We'll see, but that's another good matchup that's going on there as well. Kansas at Oklahoma State. That one's a good one too. Oklahoma State not ranked, but Kansas at 23rd. Louisville and Pitt. Louisville should win this one, but it's on the road at a 1-4 Pitt, and for whatever reason, Louisville not only a touchdown favorite in that one, and I think that's because Pitt, again, it's kind of that team that can shock you and come into the game and make it a struggle game for you. Arizona at Washington State. Auburn at LSU. Could be a good one. Let's see. 3-2 Auburn, 4-2 LSU. LSU ranked 22nd. LSU is 11-point favorite at the house, and it is at night, so an electric atmosphere there. And one of the big matchups of the nightcap, number 10 USC traveling to number 21 Notre Dame. That one at 7:30. Kind of the same thing, and I know I'm a broken record here, but you got an undefeated USC team sitting at 10, and you got a 2-loss Notre Dame team after taking their second loss last week. Can they bounce back from that, and can they try to ruin the hopes of a USC team? You know, this is a good, bitter matchup, but again, are the guys going to be bought into it? Next season, this isn't going to matter. Next season, if you have a team that matches up like this and they're 5-2 and you're ranked 21st, your season still matters because you want to get back up into those top 12, you know, to be able to play in a 12-team playoff. This year, not going to matter as much with those 2 losses. That's why I keep saying, will these guys continue to stay bought in and continue to fight for whatever it is they have left in their season? Then you got number 25 Miami after an awful loss last week, headed to number 12 North Carolina. North Carolina only a 3-point favorite at the house. That one's a tight one. My numbers are going to be a little off on my picks here in a minute. Let's see what Kentucky's made of after getting thrashed last week against Georgia. You got 5-1 Missouri traveling to number 24, 5-1 Kentucky. 2 teams that were undefeated last week both go and get beat. Missouri by LSU and obviously Kentucky by Georgia last week. Both of these teams are now 5-1. I think this could be fighting for second place in the SEC all of a sudden. A Missouri team that's much better than I thought that they were. A Kentucky team who looked promising coming into that Georgia game that got thrashed in it. Was not prepared in the way that they should have been for that game. Could this be vying for that second position depending on what happens with Tennessee moving forward? We'll see. Then you got number 18 UCLA versus number 15 Oregon State. That's the late 8 o'clock kickoff there on Fox. A 4-1 team and a 5-1 team should be a good one. And then you got NC State traveling to 4-1, 17th ranked Duke happening at 8 o'clock too there in the ACC. Could be a good matchup. Duke only a 3-point favorite in it. My picks of the week. Here we go. Let's get to them. Georgia at Vandy. Taking Georgia, obviously. I'm also taking Georgia minus 31.5. If you know, you know. That's all I'll say. But taking Georgia there. You got Kentucky or Arkansas at Alabama. I'm taking Alabama in the win, and I've got them. I had them picked at 19 when this line was at. It may be 19.5 now, but I've set it at 19. Give me Alabama with the win there, and I'll take the 19 points too. I don't think this is that game that's that close this year. Again, Arkansas I thought coming into the season they had a lot of pieces coming back that can make them successful, and for whatever reason, it's just not working. And the thing is, they're not really getting killed in games. They're just not winning them. They're not finishing the job in the second half of these games. So I will take Alabama in that one, minus 19. Then you got North Carolina to Miami. After what Miami did last week against the Georgia Tech team that, again, I don't think is very good, and losing to Bowling Green before they upset Miami last week, I do not buy into a Miami team who did that. I thought they looked good earlier in the season, and I know you can't really use that same head-to-head matchup and think, okay, well, they did that, so this is going to matter in this game. But you can't help but to do that. So give me North Carolina and give me -3.5. I think North Carolina, especially after the way they played against Syracuse last week, I think North Carolina may come into this game and absolutely thrash Miami. This, to me, has that look of a Miami team who kind of comes into the season really highly ranked, a little bit overranked, and or overrated, I should say, and they take that thrashing right on the chin, and you go, okay, Miami's not back. So we can move on from that. Could be completely wrong about that. Listen, I went 1-5 last week, so didn't do very good in that. But I'll take North Carolina -3.5 in that one. Then you got Florida traveling to South Carolina. I think that one's at South Carolina. It might not be. Might be at Florida. I can't remember. I think it's at South Carolina, though. South Carolina, 2-point favorite where I saw it. I know Florida has a better record than South Carolina, but I think I still think South Carolina's a better football team, and it's at home for South Carolina. Let me see if I can see what time that game is played, if I can get it to pull up real quick, because that may matter too. If that's a nighttime kick, no, it's a 3:30 kick. There at South Carolina, and that line's still sitting at 2. So I'm taking South Carolina in this one -2. I think South Carolina can beat them by a field goal or better. So let's see if I can turn things around. Hey, 1-7 could be the result after this week, or hey, we could go 8-0. I'd love to go 8-0 and really turn this thing around because I need it right now. 18-21-1, not the best year, at all in my picks. In years past, it hadn't been that bad, but this year, not doing too hot. So that's going to be the episode this week. Again, previewing that Vandy and Georgia game that we've got coming up this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Again, just any week that you get college football, you get that. Next week, we'll obviously take the week off with the Dawgs, so there won't be any kind of a previewing of a bye week. We will review this game on Sunday, though, so make sure you guys tune into that then. If you guys want to support the show, patreon.com/Dawg Talk. I think it's just Dawg Talk. I don't think it's 20. But anyways, follow us on all the socials. Like the video there. I'd appreciate it. We'll check in with you guys on Sunday. Good Dogs.